Hello, welcome to Petro Media. I'm your host, Terrence, and today I wanted to discuss, are you buying the gear you really need, or are you just buying what you want? And are you doing it correctly, or are you doing it wrong? Now, that's a very loaded and suggestive set of questions, and I understand that because it really is important to the person to realize what they truly need and what they truly want to buy. And that's why I brought this up. It's not really about me telling you what you need. It's about you realizing, do you need everything you're buying? Because that's the problem we all fall into. We all believe that we can't create music without this specific thing or that specific thing or that thing. We need to have this very perfect scenario for the music to work. But in truth, none of that's accurate. I mean, let's be honest. Do I need all of these things to do what I'm doing? No. I mainly have what I truly want to have that works. I'm at the point where certain things can be interchanged, but there's no reason for me to buy more or sell off anything that I currently have. As an example, the 2000 XL over here is a classic piece, a tank. It basically will probably outlast everything else in the room. And its history with me is really why I bought it back in December. Because the first one I bought was 2001 and it introduced me to producing music on that type of thing, making beats on that type of thing. That's Genesis. Had to get Genesis back. The 5000 was a challenge. I bought that as a piece to relearn how to work with MPCs all over again after being in the box for so many years. And during the pandemic, I started to pick up more and more pieces. And at one point, I had far too many things as well as what we had in the studio. And I decided to start downsizing because the truth of the matter is, you don't need much to get things going. I mean, when I first got back to music production full time, all I had was an Arturia Mini Lab and an MPC Studio 2, Logic Pro, and MPC 2. That was it. And that was more than enough to do everything I really needed to do. If anything, the Studio 2's only real limitation is that it had no Q links on the side because it was frustrating that you only had the one dial to do everything. And it has buttons and you can move around and navigate. But the job of that thing is really to be your entryway into the MPC world and you buy something else. In truth, I probably should have just picked up a Renaissance and ran that with version 2 for a while, and that would have been more than comfortable because that's a ton of features. And at that point, would I have bought the 5000? I don't think so, because they're roughly the same machine. If you think about it, the 5000 is exactly the same footprint. The palm rest pad for the Renaissance fits on the 5000. A lot of the components are similarly spaced. The only difference is the Q links. 5000 has 12 Q links, 4 of them being faders, and the Renaissance has the 16 knobs. So there's that part that throws it off, but for the most part, the bones of the two machines are relatively the same. So if you do that, plus a computer, which is way more powerful than any of these MPCs, period, the Renaissance would have been the beast to have. But I didn't think about it that way when I purchased it. I just didn't, because that wasn't where my mind was at the moment. I went ahead and bought a bunch of different things. And as I went through the phase of buying things, I realized the things that I had and started to realize the purpose they need to have. Each thing has a purpose. So the 5000 is definitely content, fun, and et cetera, et cetera. You guys can see that. That's obvious. I do production with it as well, but it's really fun. The 1000 feels the most like the 2000 XL with all the extra features, right? I went ahead and got this, and I decided to restyle it because I plan to keep it for a very long time and enjoy this thing for a very long time. And it is a lot of fun. Now that I have JJOS on it, even more fun. But to be very honest and quite frank with you, when I think about working outside of Logic and inside of a standalone unit, the first thing I pull up is the OnePlus. And it's always the OnePlus. It's too easy. It's too much fun. The limitations that everybody claims, not an issue. They're just not. And I can work smoothly with it. I mean, I have a sample chopped up on here now that, took moments to do. I think I did a video, I want to say a few weeks ago, comparing the sonic quality of all of the machines. I recorded the sample into every single machine, and I chopped each machine one at a time in the video. And the 2000 XL took the longest. The 5000 took the second longest, primarily because I was having issues with the faders and I've already replaced the Q links, so now I don't have that issue anymore. The 1000 was the second fastest machine. The One Plus was a 2-button click and it was done. So it allowed me to focus more on what I was trying to create instead of how to set up what I was trying to create. Now, of them, the one that's the most fun, once you have set it all up to create, is also the One Plus. And again, same reason, getting the work done, getting everything to move smoothly and effectively and efficiently. The 1000 is a very close second. So the conversation on you need this thing to get the next thing, to get the next thing, we got to stop that. As an example, a couple of times a year, we take a trip with the kids, and I always take something with me, whether it's the 1000, the One Plus, always a laptop and a controller. On the last trip, as much as I spent, almost a year in the One Plus and not in Logic because I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable using this machine and I fully understood how it works, I picked up Logic and started working in Logic again. And honestly, when we were on the trip, I didn't even touch the MPC. I opened up Logic Pro, had some samples already on the machine, boom, 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 all my plugins, done, easy. And did it sound any different than any of the other stuff? Not really. I mean, the biggest change in all of it is the manner of which each of these machines handle samples, right? So not the drums, not the snares, not all that stuff, because those files are all exactly the same. And for the most part, they pitch pretty much the same way, because when I'm using it on the One Plus, I use it like how I use it on the 1000, 5000, 2000 XL. So for the most part, that part is the same. But when you're dealing with an individual sample, like a loop of some sort that you've chopped up into a bunch of pieces, and using the warping tool on the One Plus, completely different ball game when it comes to the way it behaves. And I'm going to be honest about you, it just is. The fact that you can change the pitch, the time, and the tempo, and nothing gets distorted, nothing sounds crazy, very little artifacting, if any. If you've actually sampled it and done it correctly, you don't have artifacting happening at all. Do I need more? I keep going back and forth on the idea of buying the Phantom X. You guys hear me talk about it all the time, but the One Plus solved that problem. All of the MPCs, all the brand new MPCs from the one forward solves that problem with expansions. Thank you, Cubellis.com, for that. His expansions solved an issue that I had, which was, how am I going to export these sounds out of the Phantom? Do I truly want to sit here and track things out 4 at a time, which is most times stereo, so it's really 2 tracks at a time? Do I really want to do that out of the Phantom? I don't want to do that, even though I love the sounds. And most of the time when I was playing sounds out of the Phantom, I was playing at full volume because I would play hard. So it was really the top layer sample that's being played most of the time. At that point, I know how to add the things into the sound to get what I really want out of the sound. So it comes back to the question of, do I need all of this stuff? No, the expansions cover that. The instruments that Akai has added to the MPC covers that. The instruments I have in Logic from various manufacturers covers that. And then to get the articulation that I want, I have the Mini Lab connected to the One Plus, or I will switch out and put in the Mini MPK4 on the One Plus using the chord feature on either device to add different things to it. So it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, do you really need all this stuff? I recently went in the rabbit hole looking at different types of processing chains and signal paths and workflows. I did a test of hardware versus software. A lot of the software emulations were just so close to not matter. You know what I mean? It's not saying that you can't get a better sound out of the hardware, because hardware does do things. But for example, I had the privilege of using a DBX 160A, I think is what it's called. And I used that compressor with the drums on the physical one, the hardware one, and it sounds amazing. Now, I also have the UAD equivalent of that same compressor, and make no mistake, it's really close. It's really, really, really close. So the conversation kind of shifts to, do you need all this? Or do you need to work within your budget and be understanding of your budget? Because a lot of times we want things, but we're not looking at what we need at that time. And honestly, I'm a proponent for people buying the things you need first. For example, if you need to get that Neve sound, and you don't have Neve money, then look around, find ways to work with it. Figure out the things that could help you get that. Giving you some examples, Plugin Alliance has a couple of Neve plugins that are great. They have the 88R plugin. They have the 9099 plugin. That's a Neve clone. They have the ISA plugin clone. If you are a little bit more budget strapped, there's a company called Voostech that makes the channel Model N. It's like 20 bucks. And it legitimately sounds like a Neve. It gives you that feel. It's not perfect, but at the very least, it can get you in the ballpark. There's a couple of manufacturers, independent manufacturers right now, working on tonality devices that are going to be phenomenal. I've heard a couple of them and I'm just like, they're brilliant. And they sound like the original thing, or at least that person's interpretation of the original thing. So, do you need to run out and buy a piece of hardware that you are now going to spend hours, weeks, months, years trying to figure out instead of making music? Or can you just get going with a thing that's more reasonable, readily accessible, and go forward? There's a gentleman who's working on a SP202 clone plugin, and it sounds great. It really sounds like it. I mean, he has an SP202. He's done a lot of modeling. He has a couple of plugins that he's worked on that have that feel, and they sound great. So, should you go buy an SP202? Sure, if you have the money and the time to sit with it. Not saying that it's a complicated device, but it behaves different from everything else you have, and it has limitations. You know what his plugin doesn't have? Limitations. Doesn't have the same sample requirements where you are short on time. And he has a couple of extra features that he's changed up the way it behaves, but overall, it sounds close. It's not perfect. It's not exact. It can't be exact because it's not that hardware. But if it's close, is the audience going to sit here and critique you for not having a 1,000,000% authentic thing? Or are they going to say the music is good or the music is bad? Because I think the latter is what's really going to happen. So this is the thinking that I've been having recently about everything. You know, when it's time to work on anything, doesn't matter what it is. If it's a film score, jumping into Logic. If it's a licensing opportunity, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to jump into Logic. If it's a production scenario that I have a little bit more time, I'll use the One Plus. If it's just me for fun, I can make something that's solid. The 1000 is going to be the king of that. And I can sit down and play around with it. I can take this thing and sit next to my kids at night when they're going to bed and work on something, and then transfer that to the machine. Whether I export it out or take the files over, either way, I can make this work. And that's the thing. And when I have an entire day to just sit down and do nothing else, I can make 5 to 10 tracks on the 5000. So I think the conversation comes back to thinking about what's the most important thing right now. Should you be buying a whole bunch of stuff and blowing through budget and understanding that you now have to read manuals and go over forums and all these different things to make sure you understand the thing you just bought? Or should you use what you currently have and master it, fully master it? And then, only then, once you've actually truly understood it fully, figure out what's next. For me, storage and signal chain is pretty much the next step. And for the signal chain, rather than run out and buy a whole bunch of things, I am literally testing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm running 10 outs from the 5000 into my SSL 12, and I'm using channel models on each channel that I've set up for myself in a template for me to sit there and go through and figure out what's next. In the One Plus, same thing. Internally, I have channel strip settings that I work with. And the 1000, same thing. Running the 6 outs into the SSL 12, same deal. Same template as the 5000. I just sit down and go through and check things and set things the way I want it. And most of the time, I get exactly what I'm looking for from doing that without buying all this extra hardware. And that's the thing that we really need to consider. Not that you don't buy gear. If you have the money and the means and you truly want to get something, no one should tell you to stop. No one. And I'm not telling you to stop, especially if you're accomplishing the task of making music with all those things and it's high quality music. Can't argue with any of that. That you're a visionary and a champ. But if you're getting all that stuff and you're spending more time staring at it, trying to figure out how it works and what's wrong and why this doesn't work for you, that's a concern. That should always be a concern. And it should trigger something in your mind. That's what happened with me. When I sat down with all of this stuff and I was just like, this is not working the way I want it to work, immediately find a pain point, remove the pain point. And in my case, the Phantom X, unfortunately, was the pain point. Just along with the audio interfaces that decided they didn't want to work anymore. It just is what it is. And you have to do those evaluations. I recommend every 6 months to a year, do an evaluation of your setup. Ask yourself, do you need everything you're using? If not, can you archive some things? Are you going to put it aside and use it periodically? And you also have to decide to yourself, are you a collector or you're a musician? It's okay to be both. I'm both. The 2000 XL is my collector's piece. 5000 is kind of a collector's piece, even though I use it all the time. The rest of it is work. When I decided to buy the One Plus, I kept hearing people say things like, oh, it's an entry-level MPC. It's the most limited MPC. You know, you're going to want to upgrade. Oh, you definitely going to upgrade. You're not going to stay with the One Plus because, you know, the Live is better. Oh, the Key 61 is better. Oh, the X is better. You know, I think the thing that's best is the thing that works best for you. And there's always going to be people who want to give their opinion on your setup and tell you that what you're doing is wrong. The issue that I have with that is, are those people making music in the first place? Or for that matter, do they have a working scenario that makes sense for them? And if that's the case, does their scenario make sense for you? And for that matter, should you even be comparing yourself in the first place, since music is subjective? All of those are very key questions that you should be asking yourself when you're looking at your setup. For me, the One Plus is perfect. I mean, for the most part, it's exactly the same as all the other MPCs anyway. Of course, it's got some limitations because of tiering, because they have to justify the price for the item. It can't be the same, exactly the same as the Live 3. It's not going to have a battery in it, because if it had a battery in it, why would I buy a Live 3? You know, if it's not going to have the same layout as the Live 3, because then that's the case, why would I buy the Live 3? It's not going to have more than 4 Q links, because if that's the case, why am I buying the X? So it's all those different things, you know, and that's workflow, functionality, and preference. Things that make you feel comfortable in your workspace. Don't let anybody else tell you what makes sense in your workspace and you're not doing it right and you need X, Y, and Z, because you really don't. You need what works best for you in your workspace and what you're trying to accomplish. Gas is a dangerous thing. You have to remember that. It will have you draining your bank account and chasing something for no apparent reason. And by the time you realize it, you look around the space and you're just like, I have all of this stuff and I'm accomplishing nothing. You don't want to be the jack of all trades and a master of none. That is not helpful, not just for yourself, but not for anybody, really. And you don't want to be the person in the studio when it's time for you to actually work with somebody, for them to say, all right, let's work on this thing. Be like, all right, hold on 1 second. Let me just set this thing up. Oh, it's not working the way I want it to. Hold on. I got one more thing. Let me get this other thing set up real quick. Oh, darn it. Oh, you know what? I forgot the plug. Oh, I got to go get the other plug. Hold on. I'll be right back. Oh, you know what? This is going to do it instead. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be looking unprofessional. You don't want to be uncomposed with what you're doing. You want to be poised, focused, and know that you have a confidence in the knowledge of the thing you're using. Whenever I go and work with somebody directly, 9 times out of 10, laptop with Logic, audio interface, the One Plus. Because I don't need to add more complications. If they would prefer me to use the 1000, because I only give those options anyway, then I'll bring the 1000 and I'll leave the One Plus home. Because again, don't need complications. You want to make things as smooth as possible, and you want to use the tools you know the best. And once you know those tools inside and out very well, then that can help you fight the gas. I window shop all the time. I actually have a friend of mine that we window shop all the time looking at gear. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's always something new. You never know if and when that thing might be something that helps you with what you're trying to do moving forward. But you have to also ask yourself, do you need it or you just want it? And is it going to make anything better? Or is this now something I need to learn? I love how the Electron sounds. I love how all the Electron things sound. I have no interest in learning how it works because I just don't have the time. Not that they're bad, I just don't have the time. And that's the reality. That's the reality you have to realize with yourself. When I decided to get back into the MPCs, I liked 3.0 because it felt like a DAW. I wonder why that mattered. Because I was using a DAW. I was already comfortable with a DAW. So having it here with the MPC behavior here and that here made this a lot easier. So it just became logical to do that. You know what I mean? That's for me, but that's my comfort. That's my personal preference. Ultimately, you have to do what's best for you. Prefer being just in a device and you make phenomenal music. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? And you just have to realize that and not put so much pressure on yourself that somehow you're missing or you're missing out or you don't have the right thing or you don't have enough. Because at the end of the day, when is enough enough? When you get on that chase, that hamster wheel, that thing never stops. You're going to just be doing this nonstop. And you have to look at it from those perspectives. You have to draw those lines so you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're just blowing budget to blow budget. And if you buy something for the fun of it, to try it out, that's also cool too. But be honest with yourself about those decisions. Is that why you're buying it? Are you buying it to try it? And then 6 months down the line, you're going to say, okay, I did it. I guess I can go ahead and let it go. It's okay to do that. This is not judgment by anybody. And you shouldn't feel that way. When people say all sorts of crazy stuff to me online, I laugh at it. I mean, I recently had somebody, I ended up just blocking him because he was being negative and I didn't have time for all that. But he's sitting here complaining about how I didn't know about the key groups and said that was common knowledge. It was common knowledge because it is common knowledge, but nobody posted videos on it. Nobody talked about it. So it is common knowledge, but that knowledge wasn't common. So I don't see the problem. You know what I mean? You just can't think like that because it's just a waste of time. It is a waste of time to sit here and tear each other apart when the real mission of everything was to make music. So, are you making music? Did you do anything today? If that wasn't done, you should get started on that instead of worrying about what everybody else is doing. Be kind, be positive, like, share, subscribe. Join me next time.